Hi, guys. It's Nana again. I think that you all are big enough to read a longer story. So I've been saving this book for when you guys were old enough. One of the favorite things I have of all times is dragons. You like dragons? I do. And there are all kinds of stories with dragons in them. So I have this book that I only read when people are old enough to listen. And it's called Matthew's Dragon. It's about this little boy who likes dragons almost as much as I do. So I'm going to read it for you. I hope you like it. Matthew's mother was sitting on his bed reading him a bedtime story. She had just turned the last page. And so the dragon flew back to his castle and pulled up the drawbridge and went to sleep, she read. She held up the picture of the sleeping dragon to show Matthew and closed the book. Just one more, said Matthew hopefully. All his favorite stories were about dragons. His mother said firmly, tomorrow. She put the book on the bedside table and tucked him in. Good night, Matt. Sleep tight. Matthew sighed. Night. He snuggled down as his mother kissed the top of his head and turned out the lamp. The door closed behind her. In the dark room, Matthew shut his eyes, and then he opened them again. He gasped. The cover of the book on his bedtime table was moving gently up and down, and a green light was shining out of the pages. Very cautiously, Matthew reached out his hand from under the blanket, and with one finger, he pushed up the cover. As the book opened, the green light flooded into the room, and from the picture on the last page, the dragon sat up and grinned at him. I didn't go to sleep, the dragon said in a surprisingly deep voice. He was a small but extremely beautiful dragon. Matthew recognized him instantly. His skin was bright green, the scales on his back and tail were golden, and his eyes shone red as rubies. I don't want to go to sleep, the dragon said. Do you? Matthew stared at him. No, he said hastily. Oh, no, I don't. Not at all. Come on, then, said the dragon. He reached out one shining golden claw. Matthew pushed back the blankets, and suddenly he was as small as the dragon. Standing beside him on a sloping white floor, that was the page of the book. Dazed, he took the outstretched golden claw, and the dragon swung him up so that he was sitting on his back between the handsome gold-crested head and the curving green wings. Hold tight, said the dragon, and he took off from the bedside table and glided to the windowsill, where Matthew's mother always left the window open a few inches to let in fresh air. Outside the window, Matthew could see a silvery curved bridge stretching into the night. It arched through the air and down to the ground, glinting in the moonlight. It's your drawbridge, he said. Get off my back, or you'll bang your head, said the dragon. Together they slipped under the window and onto the shining bridge and ran down into the garden. When Matthew looked back, the bridge had disappeared. All he could see was the big full moon high in the sky above the dark shape of the maple tree that grew out of the lawn. And all around him, enormous blades of grass, wider than his hand and higher than his head. Now that he was a very small person, it was not so easy to walk across the lawn. Come on, said the dragon. He pushed boldly through the forest of grass, and Matthew fought his way after him. Dragon, where are we going? For a little bedtime snack, the dragon said happily. The grass ending, ended, and they were facing a huge empty expanse of gray rocks, each one as big as Matthew's head. Matthew stared. Matthew stared. It was the gravel path leading to his father's greenhouse. He started out across it, but he heard the dragon give a sudden loud shriek and a strange rusty sound like the hoot of a train, and a dragon wing knocked him sprawling back into the grass as a great black shape hurtled over their heads. Quick, the dragon Quick! The dragon pulled him to his feet, and they ran, stumbling over the gray rocks. Quick, quick! Matthew tried to look over his shoulder, but the dragon pulled him sideways through a thin black gap between two towering white walls. The black cat, chasing them, big as a horse, crashed into the door of the greenhouse and snarled with rage. Matthew and the dragon were safe inside the greenhouse. The door was open just a crack, just enough for them, but not enough for the cat. The dragon said cheerfully, he thought we were his bedtime snack. Well, we're not. That's the cat next door, Matthew said. He's mean. I saw him catch a bird once and play with it like a tennis ball, and then he killed it. Come on, the dragon said. He took hold of a strand of ivy dangling from the greenhouse shelf and began to climb up it. Matthew struggled up after him, and when they got to the top, he found the dragon perched triumphantly on the edge of a large flower pot. The pot held one of Matthew's father's dwarf tomato plants, his pride and joy. He had grown 6 of them, all standing in a row, and all covered with delicious little cherry tomatoes. Snack time, said the dragon. He reached up a claw and picked a bright red cherry tomato, which to Matthew now seemed the size of a large grapefruit. Excellent, said the dragon with his mouth full of vitamin C, good for the wings. Matthew had no wings, but he ate a tomato just to be friendly. The dragon ate 6. Then he sighed contentedly and burped. Any sign of the cat, he said. Matthew peered out at the moonlit garden. It was much larger than usual, but empty, and nothing moved. All clear, he said. They climbed to the ground again and slipped cautiously out through the greenhouse door. Matthew breathed the cool night air. He smelled honeysuckle. But although Matthew didn't see it, the cat was still there, fat and greedy, light-footed and sly. It lurked on the edge of the greenhouse roof, watching, waiting. It saw their moving figures. The dragon looked prickly, it decided, but that other one looked smooth and tasty. A very large mouthful, like a large mouse. It leaped. Matthew shouted in terror as the diving black shape knocked him to the ground, trapping him under one fierce paw. He was caught. He couldn't move. He stared up horrified into the gleaming yellow eyes, the grinning mouth full of pointed white teeth. The cat crouched triumphant, gloating. First, it would play with this creature like a tennis ball, and then... Ooh, this is getting scary. I wonder what's going to happen next. Oh, we'll find out. Knocked over end by the cat's jump, the dragon turned a final somersault and landed on his feet. He stood still, watching the cat. His eyes began to glow red as cherry tomatoes, and he took a deep, deep breath, and he began to grow. He grew and he grew, as big as the cat, as big as the greenhouse, as big as the house. He towered over the garden, his great shape darkening the sky, blotting out the moon. He was so huge that neither Matthew nor the cat knew he was there. Lying terrified between the cat's paws, Matthew knew only that a great golden claw came down out of the sky. It hooked itself into the belt of his pajama pants and lifted him upward. The cat arched its spine, hissing. The dragon swung Matthew up onto his back to sit on his scaly neck between the handsome gold-crested head and the curving green wings. Then he reached his golden claw down again and picked up the cat. He swung it to and fro slowly, 20 feet in the air. The cat yowled, terrified. The dragon went on swinging, and the yowling became a shriek. Light streamed across the dark lawn as Matthew's father opened the back door of the house. "Go home, you stupid cat," he yelled. High on the dragon's back, Matthew held his breath, but his father saw nothing. The dragon was so big now that he filled as much of the sky as the tall maple tree that grew out of the lawn. The back door closed. The dragon swung the yowling cat over to a big barrel that collected rainwater from the greenhouse roof. He dropped the cat in with a splash. Matthew cheered. "Hold on," the dragon said, and he flew. Higher and higher he flew into the night, curving round and round into a long rising spiral. His green wings spread huge and silent. The stars grew brighter as he rose closer to them. Far below, the lights of Matthew's town were spread like bright necklaces, glittering. And as he flew, the dragon sang. He sang a long, wordless music like the singing of the wind, like the singing of the sea. Matthew clung to his gold-scaled neck and listened in delight, and gradually he began to hear other voices, faint, growing, joining in. He peered out at the moon-washed sky and saw stars that were not stars, moving lights that grew larger and swooped closer. He saw then that they were dragons. From every part of the sky, the dragons came flying, turning, banking, sweeping over and under Matthew's dragon as if to greet him. All the time, their voices rose and fell in unison, mysterious, beautiful, filling the sky with dragon song. And not one of them looked the same as any other. They were all colors and shapes and sizes. There were red dragons or green, silver or gold, or steely gray. There were dragons with spiny iron claws or dragons feathered soft as rainbows. For these, Matthew realized, were all the dragons ever put into the world of story. Every dragon ever imagined was there, swirling round the sky, every dragon that ever was. Matthew lay with his arms around his own dragon's neck and laughed aloud. They were all different, and he recognized them all. The horizon tilted as his dragon banked left and then right, and like great gleaming birds, all the other dragons swooped about him in a shifting cloud. Then their music began to fade, and they fell into line so that they were flying in the long, wonderful arrowhead shape in which wild geese fly, or wild ducks, or swans. The long V of their arrowhead filled the whole sky, and Matthew and his dragon flew at the tip, leading all the rest. Matthew's dragon lifted his gold-crested head and called out with the same long dragon call that Matthew had heard before, the long, rusty hoot like the sound of a distant train. One by one, the other dragons hooted in return, calling in farewell, and one by one they banked away and disappeared into the wide sky. The dragon looked over his shoulder at Matthew. "Now I think I might go to sleep," he said. "How about you?" Matthew saw the glimmering curve of the drawbridge coming closer as they dropped through the night. Suddenly, he gave a huge yawn. "Well, maybe," he said. As they came to the shining drawbridge that led to Matthew's bedroom, all at once they were the right size to walk across it and in through the open window. From the windowsill, Matthew glanced down at the house next door, and on the doorstep he saw a very wet and sulky cat licking himself. He grinned. "Thank you, Dragon," he said. "They were very good tomatoes," the dragon said. So Matthew climbed into bed, and Matthew's dragon climbed back inside the book and curled himself into the picture he had come from. "Night, dragon," said Matthew. "Good night, Matthew," said the dragon. "See you tomorrow." And Matthew closed the book very gently, and they both went to sleep. So that's my favorite dragon story. I hope you all liked it. And I hope that when you dream about dragons, it's fun. Bye. Nana loves you.